I'm Antonio Sala, and in this video we are going to continue with our case study on the theoretical justification about the performance of a proportional controller on a first-order system. In a first video, we discussed the problem statement, block diagram, closed-loop transfer functions, and setpoint tracking performance, and in here we'll discuss disturbance rejection and measurement noise behavior. If we recall previous videos, we had a system, this one, and we executed an application, so loading from workspace. We saw that the higher the gain, the lower the position error in setpoint tracking response, and the faster the transient was. And in here we will discuss the theoretical justification of this part of the response, in which we had a step input disturbance at this instant, and well, we see that again the higher the gain, the lower the steady state equilibrium deviation, and the faster the transient is. But well, we will also discuss the theoretical justification of this high frequency measurement noise amplification, which increases as I increase the gain. So the transfer functions and theory behind all that will be the goal of this video. Going back to MATLAB, the basic theory was developed around this block diagram, and in this video we will concentrate on the effect of this input disturbance and measurement noise inputs. So we will not take into account setpoint changes, but okay, the closed loop equations are the same, in the sense that from these equations, for instance, the controlled variable had this transfer function which multiplied the input disturbance. Let's say we'll start with it. So instead of considering what happens to this transfer function in yellow, as we did in the first video, we'll just concentrate on the red transfer function. So good. We say that all denominators, let's say, have the same stuff, gk plus 1, in control output, error, and control action. So the closed loop poles will be the same in all 9 transfer functions. So we will not need to repeat the dynamics, root locus, and whatever we did in setpoint change, because it will be identical. I mean, in fact, 1 plus gk is not the denominator, in the sense that g and k are fractions. So I have some things in the numerators, and I have here 1 plus, let's say, numerator of g, numerator of k, denominator of g, denominator of k, and then after multiplying up and down by this dg dk, I would get some things here on the top of the fraction, and this actual polynomial is a denominator whose roots equal to 0 will be the closed loop poles. But the issue is that, well, everything will have the same denominator once simplified, and indeed, if we check with MATLAB, this was the setpoint tracking response we analyzed in a previous video, and we have this denominator with this closed loop pole. And if I now consider this transfer function, here I have it. So if I tell MATLAB to simplify it and put its fraction with polynomials on the variable s, then I get exactly the same denominator, so the dynamics, the poles, the duration of the transient will be exactly the same. So for instance, with kc equal 2.5, this pole will have a value of -3, time constant will be 1/3, so 95% settling time will be 3 tau, so it will be 1 second. And if we check in our simulations, disabling saturation, we get that setpoint tracking transient takes around 1 second, and disturbance rejection transient, if we zoom in here, well, we see that indeed 95% of everything happened in the first second. At time equal 11, we are roughly at steady state. So duration of the transient is the same in setpoint tracking and in step input disturbance rejection. So the only thing that we need to compute in first order systems is the final value, because a first order system does not oscillate, so it goes from an initial point to a final point exponentially, and once we know how long it takes to reach the new equilibrium, then we need to compute its value. So we will use the DC gain of these transfer functions, which will amount to replacing 0 in the transfer function. So this will be the DC gain. Here we have it. So for instance, what this formula is saying is that the final value when subject to a step input disturbance event will be this thing times the final value, or well, the constant value, if it were a step disturbance. The thing is that this is okay in theory, but input disturbances are not usually measurable. Because if I could measure it, then control will be trivial, in the sense that, okay, if somebody steals from me, let's say 2 kilowatts of thermal power, then what must I do to counteract that? Well, just increase 2 kilowatts, my manipulated power. So control is trivial if I can measure the disturbance. Then we will assume in this case that the input disturbance is not measurable. And the thing is that, well, I just know that it is there because something in my output, which is the thing I measure, suddenly changed. But this du final is not accessible. So for instance, in here, with my gain of 2.5, this thing will be 2 over 6. So 0.333 will be the value of the gain. And then perhaps I will use in practice this formula in the reverse sense, in the sense that what I can measure is that my final deviation had an amplitude of, let's zoom in, minus 0.2. So with this observation, I can assert that then if this was minus 0.2, it means that minus 0.2 divided by 1/3. It means that the final value of the input disturbance must have been minus 0.6 units. So it is true that the DC gain of this function tells me the final value of the output, but in an application I usually will employ this expression to compute the final value of the input disturbance unmeasurable from the measurable final value of the output. But okay, well, that's it. In here, of course, we are God. When I am programming the simulations, I know everything, so I can use the formulas in whatever direction I wish, from disturbance to output or from output to disturbance. But in real life, usually the result of our computations will be this du final. So this is the expression for the final value. And indeed, I said that we were God, and indeed, in dashed green here, I am plotting the manipulated variable increment that I should ideally input with an ideal control if it were measurable, and it is, of course, plus 0.6 to counteract this disturbance. But as the proportional controller does not input exactly that value, then I have a steady state error of 0.2, which we are observing here. Because it's important, proportional control has non-zero error, non-zero output increment when the transient finishes, both in setpoint tracking response and in input disturbance response. Well, this is it. Another interesting number we could get is, let's say, the quotient between the no control situation, if I put 0 gain, then my process drifts away an increment of 1.2 units, but if I switch my control on, then I am at 0.2 units deviation. So my proportional controller reduced my deviation with this gain from 1.2 deviation to 0.2 deviation. So we improved our accuracy by a factor of 6. How can we compute that from our theoretical formula? Well, let's go. In this closed loop, if I had no controller, then this would be 0, so the effect of all this would disappear, and the only thing I would have would be the open loop plant G reacting to one step in du. So, as my process was 2 over 2s plus 1, its DC gain was 2, and then the steady state error I see is just the input disturbance times the DC gain of the plant if control is not active. If control is active, I was saying this, but okay, the quantity we are looking for is, let's say, the ratio between the error when I have control on divided by the error when I have no control. So we'll have this DC gain that multiplies the input divided by the DC gain of the plant that multiplies the input disturbance when no control is on, and this quotient gives me 1 over 2kc plus 1, which is the same as this number we called position error that we derived when discussing set point tracking performance. So our conclusion is that, let's say with kc equal 2.5 for instance, this will be 1 over 6, and so it will be this ratio closed loop to open loop in input disturbance rejection. So in our simulation, the number 1 over 6 position error coefficient will tell me that this error here will be 1/6 of the set point value, and it will not tell me the value of this deviation because the input disturbance is unknown, but it will tell me that if this is the open loop deviation, then it will tell me that this thing will be 1/6 of that open loop deviation. So basically, this proportional gain reduces, let's say, the deviations with respect to the no control situation in a 1/6 reduction. So this is the analysis of the final value steady state error in disturbance rejection, or well, the same number appeared in set point tracking analysis. And then the remaining thing we need to discuss is why I get this high frequency amplification of the measurement noise. In order to do that, we will analyze the behavior of this transfer function, the effect of measurement noise on my manipulated variable command, because that high frequency activity can be detrimental to my control performance in the sense that it might reduce the lifetime of mechanical components due to fatigue, for instance, or it can excite unmodeled resonances via structural vibration modes or whatever. So performance in practice may be very different to the performance in simulation. Of course, if I wish to limit that, I would need to enter perhaps into some sort of filtering stuff, incorporating noise filters before acting on my electromechanical valves, let's say, or whatever. In fact, that's sort of a must when you use derivative actions. In here, we will not discuss filtering, we will just discuss how to predict that behavior via the frequency response of this transfer function. Okay, as the noise is random up and down, sign will not be important. So we will analyze k over gk plus 1. Here we have it. So we tell MATLAB to put everything in pretty form like this, and then the frequency response is obtained by replacing the Laplace variable by the imaginary unit. We call it j times the frequency we wish to compute. This is what we are doing here. And then computing the modulus of the resulting complex number, which is what we are doing here. And then the rest of simplified stuff is just to put it in pretty form. So this is the frequency response of the noise to control action transfer function. Then if omega tends to infinity, taking the limit, it is just a controller gain. And of course, in order to obtain that limit, as omega is proportional to s, the limit when frequency tends to infinity is the same as the limit when s tends to infinity. So in here, when s tends to infinity, let's say this would be negligible and this, so I would have 2kcs divided by 2s when s is very large, and then simplifying this, kc is the limit of the transfer function when s tends to infinity, which is of course the same as the limit of the frequency response, apart from the absolute value, let's say, modulus. So the thing is that in high frequency, the amplification is the controller gain. And well, if we actually plot this frequency response for every frequency, for let's say k equal 1, 2, or 5, well, then we get this plot. We see that indeed high frequencies are overrepresented with respect to low frequencies, because high frequencies get amplified more than low frequencies, and so this is why we get a high frequency amplification on my manipulated variable, which is roughly proportional to the proportional gain of my controller. And if we go back to the simulations, this is what we see. A very large high frequency activity that, okay, if instead of 20 I get 10, then it will reduce by half. If I put 5, it will reduce again by half. So the high frequency content of my control action is, let's say, proportional to the gain. So that's a reason to limit that gain. Or, if I need that high gain to achieve good controlled variable performance, then maybe I need to resort to some filtering or whatever. But if I filter too much, that will be detrimental to my performance, etc. But okay, that's a matter of more advanced situations. And in here, we are just discussing proportional control. So we'll end our discussion here. In this video, we discussed the disturbance rejection performance, and we concluded that the duration of the transient was the same as in set point tracking, and also the ratio between no control and proportional control was equal to the position error coefficient. Just a remark, this is true if my transfer function is stable and it has no zero gain, because otherwise we would be dividing by 0 or by infinity to get those ratios, so things would break. But okay, in this simple case, this was it. We had in this gain 3 simulation a 1 to 7 reduction of deviation. And then we also discussed the theory behind the high frequency amplification of the measurement noise we observe here, and that high frequency amplification was roughly proportional to the controller gain. So the higher the gain, the higher the amplification. We end our presentation here. Thanks for watching.